Have you ever seen a brand new eyeshadow palette release and said to yourself, wow, that is gorgeous, I really want to get that? And then if you sat back and said to yourself, the more you look at it, that's a really beautiful palette, don't I already have that? Well, let's tippy-toe down that road and find out together. Hello everyone, thank you so much for being here. I truly, truly appreciate you. You have no idea. As I sit here and try to go over videos that I want to do, so many of them are story times, and I've said this in my previous videos, but just in case, on the off chance, maybe, that somebody is new and hasn't watched my videos, I am on a very limited budget, and my story times I have to do with a get ready with me, so I have something to do with my hands, and I don't know, I think it's a lot more interesting for you guys on the other side. But I admit that those do take a very long time to film and a very long time to edit, to do it for me properly in the way that I want to do it. So I'm also going through and trying to decide what products do I really love and want to keep in my life. And as I was doing that, in kind of preparation to even think about doing an eyeshadow palette to cover. See, this is why I have a hard time editing my videos. My eyeshadow palette to declutter, I know that's going to take forever, so I'm giving myself a head start. As I was doing that, I was like, that palette looks similar to that palette, which looks similar to that palette, which looks similar to... You get the idea. I'm going to go over 6 palettes that to me are very similar. Some of them you can definitely tell a difference, but with certain colors they could pass for each other. One palette is brand new and it is a gift from my friend, which I'll be showing you, and then at the end I want you to guess which palette I have on my eyes, and it's not going to be as easy as you think. I wish that my editing software allowed me to put up pictures of all the palettes so you could really see the difference. It's just iMovie and it lets you do only simple things, and that's not one of them, and that's very frustrating. So I'm going to go over all of the palettes, and then I'm going to sit here and do swatches of the colors that I think are similar. The first palette that I found is from Colored Rain. I have to look up and see if they are still a company. I have to put my little baby fan on for a little bit because I was fine before and now I'm not. So I'm very happy to see that Colored Rain is still in business. They have a beautiful eyeshadow formula. I think I own 3 of their palettes, and I just saw that they have some new releases that I'm extremely excited about, but I don't hear anybody, at least on YouTube, talking about them. But I'm very happy to see that they are around. So this is that soft matte packaging, which I love, and it's called the Rebellion's Nudes. Now obviously you know what approximately sort of that it's going to look like. Oh my goodness. This is a beautiful palette. I admit I haven't played with it an extraordinarily amount of time, but these are definitely my colors. And I like the way it's set up, and you're going to see that it's set up very similarly, I said that correctly, to another palette. If you look at the rows across this way, you'll see all of the deep shades, then you see some of those lighter tones, which I would basically call your crease colors. I think these could be used as a highlight color or as a base eyeshadow color, and I also use the lighter shades to buff out some of the darker shades that I'm going to use in my crease, etc. Kind of like I have on here. I have a more dramatic look today, but I want it to feel, I don't know, a little bit more oomphy. Not a word. I'm feeling blah, and makeup makes me happy. And then you have these gorgeous shades here, one of which is a gorgeous duochrome color. That is this one on the end here, and that one is this here. Let's see if I can get it to shift for you. I just thought it was like this beautiful green, and instead it goes from this green to a reddish. I think unless you have the correct lighting, it's very difficult. What I also like about this one is you can go in the rows this way to create an entire look depending upon how intense or less dramatic you want to be. I love when palettes are set up like this because I, especially lately, do not have the most creative eye, no pun intended, to create looks. This is another beautiful palette. I love all of these palettes. Let's get that out of the way. I like some more than others. This is from Lunar Beauty and is their Nude Prism palette. I've always talked about how beautiful Manny MUA's packaging is. Now, if you take a look, what do you see? It is, of course, a bigger palette, and a lot of these are toppers, which these sort of are. But some of them do have that more substantial, metallic, heavier feel of a shadow. And I think you can see just by these swatches on my hand, they're a little bit thicker. That's a word that I like to use. And this one, the lighter one, is most definitely more of a topper. Obviously, because this is a bigger palette, it definitely incorporates more of a variety of nude shades, or what can be considered nudes to many different skin tones. It even has more of the pinkier tones in here. But if I were to do this, again, this is not the most ideal situation, but if you can see some of the similarities, this has a little bit more only cooler tones where you can see some of the warmth in this palette. But look at the metallics. Very similar. And again, I'm going to show you across all of the palettes all of the similar shadows that I think there are. Do you know how they put the names above the shadow, say on an arm? That's much more sophisticated editing that I have the ability to do. And these wipes are completely dry. Completely. We're going to find another solution. So the next palette I want to go over, as I said, is a gift from my friend Clara Barrera. My friends never have to give me anything for any reason, for any occasion, and I am always so incredibly grateful. But I always say a card, a text, a thought will always suffice. I've never tried Blend Bunny Cosmetics, and I've been playing with this one a lot because it's a new palette and I get excited about it. It's called the Forget Me Not Versatile Eye and Face Palette. I have used it for other things besides eyes. Now, I don't want to just bend this back too much. What are you doing? This is more on the cool tone side. I can definitely wear them on my eyes, and I've tried to mix and match to get some tones from my eyebrows. Lately it is a bit it is a bit frustrating for me to try to mix certain tones to make them work for my eyebrows, but that's like just a me thing. I will say for a light contour, this one works quite well. I'm not wearing it today. These darker colors will work as liners, which I have tried that as well. Look at these gorgeous shimmery colors. This one here is a mushy, gushy, if you press your finger into it type of feeling. Now these two oddly look quite similar. Those are the first two in the palette. This is the third and this is the last. That's the second one, and it has a different texture and there is a slightly different tone. You can see when I hold it up. The second one is pinkier than the first. There are going to be textural differences amongst all of the palettes because they all have different formulas. But you know how I've said in the past that certain tones in a palette may not translate onto your eyes differently. We're also going to discover that as well. This is a nice size palette, probably around the same, let's see. Well, looky, it is identical in size to the Lunar Beauty palette. I have a lot of the similar tones. This one leans more on the cooler side, and it does have some of the pink tones. And if you notice, this is a popular color in more of the cooler palettes. And I see this color in this palette, the Rebellion's Nude. Again, I think the darker colors could be the same across all palettes, especially when you're talking about on the eyes. Now the difference with this one is it is just a matte palette, and I can say that I had kept this one out for quite some time because when I'm in a rush, I just grab a matte color and then we'll use, what is it, one of the Danessa Myrix palettes, the sparkly ones. A nice nude color, throw that on, and mascara, and I'm out the door if I want just a little bit something extra for work. The Dominique's Cosmetics palette, more beautiful colors. This one does have more of a gold shimmer. Now to me, this little corner here would go spectacularly. I actually said that because look at those three shimmers, and that purple one on the end, although slightly different from some of the others that I have shown you, still is quite the similar concept. Now you can see that mauvey shadow, although it has some brown in it next to that purple, I really do think they would go beautifully together. Her black shadow has some creaminess to it. I know I haven't swatched any of the other black shadows. It looks sparkly because I, of course, had shadow on my hand. But this one doesn't fluff or float all over the place, and I wanted to point that out. Here's the good old Lauralee Los Angeles Nudie Patootie palette. Those palettes have 18 shadows in the Lunar Beauty and the Dominique Cosmetics. This one has 14. Although laid out differently, it still is quite similar. Except in this one, the shimmers are just a little bit more colorful. There is this lovely color again. Her shadows are so smooth. It's like that yellow-orange kind of color that we've seen in the others. And let me just swatch some of the similar shades. Now honestly, these I don't think are as intense as some of the others, but sometimes you may not want that. I do think they're beautiful. They don't have a super squishy texture, but they're definitely not toppers. They have some substance to them. Now this is from Juvia's Place. I love Juvia's Place palettes. They have all different shapes and sizes. Some are super colorful, some are more muted like this. This was a series. She had like the purples, the nudes. This one is called the Taupes. Granted, this is a much smaller palette, so you're not going to have the variety that are in the others, but look at the shimmers. There's a lot of similarity. Again, this is more on the cool tone side. Interestingly enough, this one to me seems like it has a pinky undertone. It's not quite a shift, but it doesn't look as light goldish as I think it translates onto my hand. This gunmetal is beautiful. Now this one is slightly different, but as I looked at it, I thought I saw some similarities. This is from Glamlight. It is the Hershey Kisses palette. Their ingenuity just gets me every time. I turn into like a sucker when it comes for their palettes. The Hershey's Kisses, even with the little tab. I wish that the tab pulled open the palette, but it doesn't. This one has that gold. This is a very familiar shimmer. These, as Glamlight metallics have that more substantial. You can see how dark these swatches are. That purple calls me every time. Now what I'm going to try to do, put some of the similar swatches on my arm, and then together we're going to take a closer look at it, because I have not done this yet. This is just in my head. Let's see if the in my head thoughts translate onto the on my arm thoughts. I'm hoping this is a good way to do this. I have swatched all of the golds. Let me move my arm up. Now there are definitely some differences, more than I thought, but again, how are they going to translate? So the first gold is from the Lauralee Los Angeles Nudie Patootie palette. The next, the only gold in this Hershey's palette from Glamlight is that second one. You can see it's more of an old gold color. Manny put several gold toned shades in his palette, which I think is an interesting choice. I used 4, which is 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now do you see how this one has a slightly reddish tone to it, and yet when I pull my arm up it turns pure gold, and then it goes down a little bit to the red. So could it be slightly duochromy? Possibly, but it doesn't have that typical shift. And I think this one is most similar to these up here, and that was this last one. This is from the Blend Bunny Cosmetics palette. This one is a brighter gold, and it is fairly different from the others. Still beautiful. A lighter texture, but I am really enjoying it. And of course I can say that they all swatched beautifully. And then in this Dominique Cosmetics palette, I think there are really 2 gold shades in here. The more rosy gold and the more true gold. But even the true gold seems to have some similarities, but not an exact dupe. I shouldn't say dupe, not an exact match for any of the others. Which do you think are the most similar? I'm actually shocked that there is some differences, because to me in the pan they looked so incredibly similar. Now, a lot of these have dark browns. It's hard to tell sometimes whether it is black or dark brown. This one is called Fearless from the Dominique Cosmetics palette. The texture, as I said, is very smooth. I didn't like the way that swatched, but you know, yeah, it's kind of swatching the same way. It's a lot more subtle than it appeared on my finger. I do want to swatch both of these shades in the Blend Bunny Cosmetics palette. Say Yes and in the Plan. This one feels a little bit more powdery than the than the Dominique Cosmetics palette. Oh, but this one swatches so much better. Look at that. I did not have to run my finger across that the way I did with this one. And this one looks a little bit more chocolatey, but it's called In the Plan. This one was a bit more of a struggle. Okay, that's 2. Still easier than the Dominique. Let's do the Manny MUA. Smooth, but let's see. Okay, still on the light side. You'll notice there is quite the similarity between these three. Let me give it another chance like I did with the others. The only one I really didn't have to do 2 swipes with was the Blend Bunny. Do you still see a little bit of gray undertones, and this one is truly black? I just realized that I did not do this goldish shimmer in the Colored Rain palette, or did I? I think quite similar to the others as well. Here's the black in the Colored Rain. Now this palette is quite a few years old. Does have a nice feel. And she swatched blacker than the others, very similar to the Colored Rain. Now the only other palette with a true black, this one again is more of a charcoal gray, and it's very obvious that it is. This is the Transitions palette from Dominique Cosmetics. This is the driest formula that I think I have. It's not very patchy, and I think it has some similarities to the same tones of black as the others. So now we can see how all of the palettes with black in them do swatch differently, but will they be the same interpretation on the eyes? That's where I'm going with that, and I look forward to your thoughts. Now look what happens when you try to get this off of your arm. You know, maybe I should have done the lighter colors first. Would that have been smart, Leann, you know? Okay, if you want to laugh, I had to literally go scrub my arm with soap and water, and look, you can still see the stripes of the black. Well, you know, at least they have some staying power. You know what? I have to say, this is actually fun. I'm enjoying myself. I don't know how it's going to come across when I'm editing, but at least I can tell you that I had fun filming it. Alrighty, let's do some chocolate browns, shall we? In this Dominique Cosmetics palette, the only real like brownie tone that's true brown. See, this one has a little bit of pink in it. This I would say is the most tan. I'm going to call that tan. Let me just do this one. That's more orangish, I think. I'm still going to keep it here because I want to compare it. For reference, this is called True Self and Compassion. True Self and Compassion. The JUVIA'S Place palette. Love the feeling of their matte formula. Now these really blend into my skin tone a lot. They don't have names, but I'm going to hold it up here. This one is this top one, and that more grayish toned is down here. They are quite similar, as I said. Hopefully you'll be able to see them actually show up on my arm. These are the first two that are very similar to my skin tone. Now there are a lot of gorgeous browns in here, but I want to see if I can stick to some of the same tones. Some are going to be darker. I do want to try this Putty, remember, and then Room Service, which is that lighter color here that might match one of these. Oh wow, I mean, look at the pigmentation. It blows everything else away. This Room Service. Okay, that's definitely more of that putty color, similar to the JUVIA'S Place. Let's try this because I think it might match the top one. This is Anticipation. Okay, that has a similar tone. I mean, definitely there's some difference. I think this one is a little bit warmer actually than this. This is more on the orangier side. Now let's try these two because even this one has some pink in it. Tease is that more orangey tone. Running out of room. That is definitely similar, I'd say, in tone to this one, and I won't be able to say what that is until I go back in my editing. It's called Classic. Oh, you know what? That is really similar to this one from the same palette. One I think just swatched deeper, maybe because it was on the crease of my elbow. That is very, very interesting. Yet I can definitely see a distinction between the two, and yet they translate very, very similarly on my arm. This is really going to be difficult, as I said, because there are so many similarities. I should have just done them separate and told you, but nonetheless. This transition palette, this way. Oh wow, look at how orangey that one is. No, I'm sorry, that is a yellow. That is more of that yellow brown, which was very similar. Even though it's so light, it's most similar to the JUVIA'S place, I think. That was called Honey. This one's called Toffee. This is more of a drier shadow. I think those are complementary to each other, but do I see any that are similar? I'll look forward to your opinion on that. And let's do one more. This one's called Caramel. These are more orangey than I truly had imagined. Oh, look at how that one matches that one. Very similar effect there. There are only a couple of shades in the Colored Rain palette that I think are going to work comparatively. I will do this yellowy here, but I think it's going to be... Yep, it's even a different tone of yellow-brown that the others are. It was called Temper Tantrum, and I'm going to do this darker one called Big Girls Don't Cry. No, you know what? It's really going... I'm going to put it here, but it's really going to be not in the same depth or family. It's just a bit more... It has more orange tones to it, but it's definitely not close to the others. But I do want to do this more putty shade here. Wow, again, they're so deceiving how this is, I would say, not cream, but more of a yellow cream. The Hershey's palette is going to be too dissimilar, but I think there are some tones in the Nudie Patootie palette. Let's do Strip, that orangey. Oh, these feel beautiful. Let's do this orange here. Okay, wow. We do have some similarities across these three. I think these are the most similar throughout anything that we've swatched thus far. Let's just do more of this taupey color, and this one I think was called Reveal. I don't know if I've done Reveal yet. Very similar from the Laura Lee palette. So I can say that these have definitely surprised me. Again, I get shocked when I actually see them all on my arm and do the comparison. But will that difference, as I said with the other colors, the darker ones, will they translate onto the eye so differently that you could do two palettes, one on one side, one on the other, and you could definitely tell the difference? That I'm curious about. The last ones that I think I want to try are the true dark chocolates and some of the more burgundy, rosier tones. This one is called Nakey Nakey. Very crumbly. Wow, very crumbly, as you can see, but very dark, so you may have to be careful. This one from the Milk Chocolate palette I think is very different. I am going to swatch this, but I think it has purple undertones. Very pretty, still in the chocolate family, but yes, can you see that slightly purple hue? I don't think any of the other shades truly fall into that dark chocolate. These tones from the Transitions palette are also slightly different, but I'm still going to try the darkest of the two chocolates. To me, they seem extremely similar when I look at them. I think says Coffee Bean. I think this one says Moolah. I am going to be so disillusioned when I actually read them. Okay, these are definitely, except for this purpley one, these are all within the same undertone family. Manny's palette, and you know, Lunar Beauty, I think he has two, I'd say this is the darkest chocolate, this is too rosy red. Ooh, it's called Moody. I think these two are extremely similar. I mean, this one maybe has the slightest more yellow undertone of a brown, but I think they're very, very similar. This could be chocolate brown. It could have some reddish undertones. This one's called I'm Speaking. Yeah, that's too red. And I think I did Big Girls Don't Cry in my other swatch. Okay, the darkest chocolate brown in here is Unforgettable. Definitely more of a purplish undertone. Similar to this, but yet slightly different from this one. That's interesting. Let me do the one next to it, see if the undertones are different. I think this says Picture Perfect. Yes, see, that is most definitely more of the same tones. You have to discount this one and this one because they are just, and even this one, they're too rosy, not in the same family. The Juvia's Place doesn't have a dark enough brown. And honestly, neither does the Dominique Cosmetics have a deep enough brown. The last ones that I want to do are the more icy shimmers. From the Dominique Cosmetics palette, there's really only pinky shimmers. These two from the Blend Bunny Cosmetics I think are the iciest out of this palette. So this is Cheers. I'd say that's definitely more yellow. And this one is Memories. This one's silvery, this one's gold. The Dominique one has more pinky. I want to try to match some of the pinky tones, but you know, there aren't that many. But let's wait on that. This I would consider the most iciest in the Juvia's palette. But I think it's more on the goldish side, but yeah. It's even more gold. See, these I can still consider icy, where this I consider more gold. This in the Colored Rain palette is definitely icy. And this one has more of a green shift to it. In the Transitions palette, I'd say that this is the iciest of them all. Can't read it at the moment. Let's look across these colors. I think, aside from the slight tinge of tones, they would all look quite similar unless you truly pack them on. And here is Laura Lee's Nudie Patootie palette. This is her iciest shade. Stark. And it's much more subdued, I think, than the others as far as their impact. It's still pretty, but you can see the impact of this one up here and even this one. They're more intense, but there's nothing wrong with the subtle color. The last set of swatches that I want to do, and I may cut them out depending upon how long this video is, are some of the more burgundy tones. Neither the Nudie Patootie or the Hershey's Chocolate has the more rosy tones. For this one, I think the rosiest could be Cinnamon or something. I'll have to look it up. Let's see. Cinnamon is definitely brown. I'm going to take Cinnamon off my arm. So the most burgundy shadow in this Transitions palette is Cold Chai. Manny's palette, I think the deepest burgundy type shade is this one here. It's called Bloom for You. Definitely a very deep burgundy. That's gorgeous color, beautiful swatch. I'm trying to decide if this is burgundy or not, and I know this one is. Let's see. I bet you this one's the chocolate. Yeah, that's chocolate. Let's try this one. This is Grown Up Tinge. Again, 3 beautiful burgundy shades and definitely different tones. And yet when I look at them, I'm going to hold these two palettes up. When I first looked at them, I'm like, oh my goodness, there's going to be so many similar colors. And yet there's not. And even with the black shades, there is such a difference. Okay, so my little experiment is over. As I said, it was a lot of fun to do. So here are my final thoughts, my friends. I've recorded this 3 times because I can't gather my final thoughts. Are some of the colors that I swatched going to look similar on the eyes? Probably yes. But if you'll notice, there's differences in the formula, in the intensity. So I really don't know how those are going to translate because I haven't tried like one palette on one side and one palette on the other. That might be an interesting experiment as well. I can say that because I don't like pulling from too many palettes unless it's like two, that's an all matte palette, as I've stated, and an all sparkly palette if you want to call it that, that's about as much mixing and matching as I like to do. I think all of these palettes are unique enough for me that I do like them all. Will I keep them all? And that's going to be a very hard decision because these are my things. I am very grateful to have each and every one of them because each of them will give me a beautiful look when I use it. I'm excited to try some of the different tones that I swatched today and see what kind of looks I can get out of them because I think I've been gravitating towards only certain colors in those palettes, and now I'm excited to maybe, again, step out of my box and try some other fun things. Now, I'm wondering if you had this whole time to think about what's on my eyes currently. Did anybody guess? I would say put it in the comments, but you could put it in the comments afterwards and be right, and I'm going to tell you anyway, and that probably doesn't make sense. I'm using my new palette, the Blend Bunny Cosmetics Forget Me Not. I am using several of the colors on my eyebrows. I couldn't tell you the exact mixture. I kind of just switched it up and played around and tried. I did use the pink today. I love that there is a pink powder. I bet you could also use this pink powder as a face powder as well. How many times did I say powder? Because I used that pink, I also used the pinky on my lid. I was going to use it as a highlighter, but I'm scatterbrained and I completely forgot to put highlighter on as well because it doesn't matter why. Let's just say I forgot it. I used the black as my eyeliner, which I've really been enjoying doing. And if you notice, I think I get more of a little bit of a flick of a wing when I use a shadow than when I use a liner or a liquid liner. I don't know. But I'm so incredibly grateful for this palette. And I'm so incredibly grateful for all of you. I hope you had fun going through this with me. It was a bit of a different video. I'm trying, my friends. I am trying. You guys always don't have to leave intense comments if you don't want to. I appreciate that because it shows me that you have actually watched my video, and that means so much to me. But if you just want to leave me hearts to let me know that you're here, I appreciate that just as much. I know everyone's time is precious, and even for me, I want to leave longer messages on my friends' videos to let them know I've watched everything, but sometimes unable to, but I want them to know that I'm there. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But if you have a particular palette that you would like to let me know your experience with, I love to hear your thoughts, your ideas. I just like talking to you guys because you're all very special to me. I want to thank you for going through this with me. I love you tremendously, and I will see you with my next video. I'm hoping that it's going to be a get ready with me. Much love, everybody. Bye.